Hello and welcome to another miniature painting stream. Tonight we'll continue working on the Malifaux crew I have from the family. It's Santiago Latigo and a bunch of her followers, henchmen, minions, so on. I'm not very fast at painting, so this is just a cozy little project I have. A few days ago on Sunday I basically finished up the first miniature in the crew, which was Papaloco, but I didn't finish the edge of the base. So I'm going to attempt something live here on the stream and see how that works out. It may work, it may not work, but I'm going to try to peel off some of the paint that's on the edge. So instead of painting the edge black, I'm just going to try and remove it using a small trick that I thought up that might actually work. So I've also played around a bit with my camera setup. Hopefully it will give a better viewing experience. I still need more light to actually make it really good. Hey Tom, good to have you on board. So, but as I was saying, you know, see the white here on the edges and also the brown. I really like it to just be, you know, solid black. But instead of painting over it and risking, you know, painting down on the base itself, and also to avoid having an extra layer of paint on it, I'm going to try to do what I do when I actually when I clean my hands after painting, because you know, this being Corona times, we all have, you know, a lot of hand sanitizers nearby, and I actually realized that many years ago that peeling off the paint you naturally get on your fingers when you're painting. At least I get it all over the place, but just using soap has its limitations. But actually using just a little bit of, you know, standard hand sanitizer. We have this. This isn't Danish, but it's basically the pharmacy's alcohol gel. So what I'm going to try to do is see if it works just as well. On the mini as it does on my fingers. Hey Modifian, welcome aboard. You're going to see me mess up my miniature completely in a minute. Basically, yeah, there we go. As you can see, this works like a charm, really. So what we're doing here is we're using hand sanitizer to remove the paint. And if I get it up here, you can see a very nice and smooth black surface. It's a little bit of hand sanitizer, but that's gonna sort of wear off really quickly. So yeah, that actually works. So let's do that a little bit more. I'm just gonna see. I mean, since it seems to be working, there's not a lot of point wasting your time on this. I need to move on to one of the other miniatures. I mean, this is looking very promising. See if you see here, unless you can probably also see if you've seen some of the other streams. I've moved my camera so it's not sort of right next to my fingers and hands on my side. It's actually up above the miniature pointing down. And I realized that would probably be easier because when I was painting the other day, I realized that a lot of the time it looked more or less like this, so you couldn't see what I was painting. So this is sort of the next step, and it's a little bit better. But anyway, this technique really does seem to work quite nicely for removing the paint rather than painting over with black. So I will do that on my own time. For now though, let's get him out of the way. Let's grab a second. Yes, I have two of these. I also have autofocus on my camera. Pretty. The question to you, my dear audience, is who do we want to paint? We have Francisco. I know he's carrying a pistol in his hand here. I haven't glued on his sword. He has a sword that goes here. But my plan is to paint that on its own and then paint his cloak and all that first. I think that's going to make things a lot easier to work with. So we have Francisco. Malifaux and Elena, welcome to have you aboard. We're picking out which miniature I should begin working on. And then we have Perdita herself. Fantastic, wonderful, really large broad-brimmed hat. Again, since we're doing this to get them table ready, not Golden Demon Award standards, you want to see her painted. I'm gonna go through the rest of them as well, because Modifian, there are other kits here and you should play nice. The next one here is... Oh, AJ, thank you for using it on me. Next one up here is Santiago. He is basically a bit of a brute. He's both close combat and range, just shooting all over the place. He can be really, really grim to be up against. So that's option number 3. Option number 4 is an enslaved Nephilim. When I watch you try to do his tongue, I mean, you're talking about Santiago's? You probably were. You're very tongue fixated. No, but the enslaved Nephilim in the world of Malifaux, they actually do have actual Nephilims, angels kind of thing. You can see kind of someone cut his wings off and put a ball and chain on his legs and hands and basically just enslaved him. Yeah, I can do a lot of awesome colors. The last option we have is Nino. Basically a very secretive guy who sneaks around. He can deploy and set up on the board. After all the other people have set up, he just pops up, not wherever you want him to go, but there are some pretty good options for that. He's actually categorized as a sniper, which I find hilarious considering he's running around with a Gatling gun. So apparently sniping with a full automatic machine gun is a thing. So who do we want to do? We have Perdita, Nino, the Nephilim, Santiago, and Francisco. So pick your favorite ones. If we don't get anything, well, I guess I'm gonna do Perdita for Modifian. The girl is called Perdita, P-E-R-D-I-T-A. So Perdita and Santiago, which would be these two. Anyone else want to chip in? Speak now or forever. Yeah, Perdita, exactly Modifian. That's how you spell it. So, pick a choice. Yeah, look the most fun. I think Francisco is also going to be fun to paint with the cloak. Talking in all caps. So, I think what we should do. You know what? We're going to go with Santiago. Because I just got an idea for his cloak. It's gonna be hopefully really cool and work really well. And there you have it. So I do have one question for you guys. How's the sound at the moment? Because when I was testing it out earlier today, it sounded like it was really sort of clippy and crackling, and that annoyed me. So, but anyway, for the cloak, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of semi-cheat. I'm going to clean out the cobweb. It's a clear sign that your miniatures have been standing around too long when you actually have cobweb inside of them. Whatever it is. Nah, probably not. Just some normal dirt. Okay, music loud. I can do something about that. Is that better? So we're doing Santiago. And what we're doing with Santiago is that we're still going to be sticking to the same colors as I did with Papa Loco. Cool, thanks Melly. And I'm basically going to give him a brown coat. Yeah, I think the coats are going to be brown on all of them. And I'm going to cheat a little bit and use a contrast color for that. Because it's going to flow really nice in this coat. It's also going to make it a lot faster to paint. Well, coat and jacket, all in all. Then we're going to do it's drifting out here. Do the red that I want to incorporate into the scheme, color scheme. I'll do that on his vest, here on the front. Or on his scarf. That should probably go on his scarf. Would it be horrible to have both the scarf and the vest in red, and then maybe highlight the scarf so it's even brighter? We'll get back to that. And the pants going same color as Papa Loco, so the khaki green brownish. Hey Bladio, good to see you. Hey, you're looking good yourself, so thank you. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Boots, probably either gonna go for black or dark brown. Probably dark brown makes more sense to this dude. And then again, something to do with his hair, blah blah blah. We'll get to that as we go along. So let us begin by finding the color that was hiding over here. Remember, shake your paints. So do a little bit of that over here. I haven't been able to find a setup where you can actually see my wet palette, but it is here. Working with it, and we need to get the medium as well. I'm just talking a little bit to myself. So anyway, oh, Tom is handsome as well. And for those of you who don't know it, both AJ, Gladio, and Tom Posh, they all have their own Twitch channels as well. I don't have my bot set up for doing shoutouts or anything like that. But if you do come anywhere near them, go take a look. It's been really fun watching them play. Tom did a really good series on, what was that game called? Kind of horror game where you're in a small town. It's really, really cool. So, just mixing up a little bit of red over here. Kind of get nice and thin down. Now, again, standard painting tip, thin your paints. I wish I had known that back when I started out, because it's a completely different way of working with the paints. But I seriously like doing it like so. So much easier to apply thin paints than thick paints. And even if it does take 2 layers, I mean, as you can see here, it actually works quite well. Goes quite fast to just put on, because it flows a lot easier from the brush. So, oh yeah, our accents. Well, I mean, you do too. I mean, I love the Canadian accent. There's something about the OU sounds, like when you're saying about, it turns into sort of about. I find that, I don't know, I just like it. Also, you can see how much my hands are actually shaking today, which is partly because I'm just like that, but also because I forgot to stick him in my wonderful paint handle, or miniature handle, or whatever. Yeah, this is when I'm moving my head back and forth a lot, I know. That's because I'm looking through the magnifying glass. It gets really annoying when it's not in focus. So, yeah. And what if you might said, I like potato sounds. A boot is absolutely the sound of a small potato in your mouth while you talk. Now, Steve Modifian, that's where you're wrong. Because when I grew up and we started learning about, you know, proper English and the American accent and all that, the general consensus was that American is just speaking English with a potato in your mouth. And since Canadian is a lot different from American, no, I don't buy it. Anyway, let's do his scarf as well. Yeah, so you can hold it on with a lot better. And see, due to the senescent highlight, the scarf is actually automatically going to get a slightly brighter color on its own. Now we also need to paint down here. Oh man, this really breaks my heart because I'm painting outside of the lines at the moment, and I hate doing that, but I'm trying to teach myself to not care and fix the mistakes at the end rather than as I go along. And what do you know, I might actually be learning. And Modifian is talking about Shakespeare in the OG, as an original gangster. Are you saying that Hamlet was the original gangster? Yeah, actually painting outside of the lines and onto the coat is really a bad idea, since I'm going to be using contrast paint on it. And the contrast paints are, by definition, what's going on in my chat? So, OG, you can't just go around changing what things mean. I mean, that's terrible. It's like languages evolve or something like that. That just does not compute. Exactly. And do I have a little bit of white that I can scavenge over here? I think I do. Like that. Now, we just actually need to cover this up. So as I was saying about mistakes, I really don't want to do it, fix them as I go along, but just this one here actually makes sense to do, because the coat is going to be given some contrast colors, and contrast colors are quite transparent actually. So let's just fix up. And most of the mess I did here was actually because I'm using a good brand of brushes that unfortunately I got one that was really not good. So it has a lot of split hairs, and I tried trimming them off and all that. Still doesn't work properly. I figured I'd just use it here because it is slightly larger than the one I currently use. But who cares? I'll fix this up. A few more layers and it's gonna be fine. Yeah, but if you should be careful. You're in, young company. Yeah, well, Bill, don't give away your real age. As for you, Modifian, you're also very old. Now, I don't know if you can see this already, but I mean, the red coat or vest or whatever is actually really nice already, simply by giving it one thin layer. I think this has to do with the scale color that paint. It's fairly matte, which means that it also has something about the pigments and all that. I'm not entirely sure what goes on with these paints, but just I like using it. To the senescent highlight underneath, which makes me really happy. What, Modifian? I'm telling you to behave and you're telling me I'm rude. Right. And now if OG now suddenly just means original, then what about OMG? Oh, more original? See, it doesn't make sense to change things. Okay, I should probably also let you know that it really isn't as bright red as it seems on camera. I think that's still, again, my lighting setup that's a little bit messed up. Oh yeah, mods. I think you're all mods here. Maybe not smelly farts. Your old fogey is showing. Start telling me about your lawn. I don't have a lawn, I live in a flat, you git. I have a feeling this is going to be the sort of the new theme for this stream. Show up in chat and get insulted by Modifian. Get your best insults here. Old man yells at cloud. Well, we've all been there. There's nothing wrong with that. So let's do a little more fixing up over here, because the red seems to be done-ish. Now the problem with the contrast colors, when I get to that for his coat here, is that they actually do take quite a long time to dry up properly. So once I've done that, I won't be able to work really on the rest of the miniature for fear of painting over it. So, Modifian, did you just say that it's your stream and not mine? Because that makes me... well, I don't know what it makes me. I feel like now I'm just your puppet. But then again, wasn't I just your puppet all along? Oh yeah, Tom, be careful with that. Or you could just start going by Thomas. That should add a few years. And make people think you're even older than the rest of us. See, here we go. Yeah, I can actually see this. And again, we're doing the sort of brown, red, khaki, completely horribly chosen off scheme for the colors on these miniatures. That is by design, because I like to break rules. People always go, oh, you should use the contrasting colors, or you got a color wheel, you should go for a triangle or a square, balance them out and all that. I just like to play around and see what happens if you don't. A little bit of bleeding onto the leg there. And no one's going to notice that once he's up and running. Just need to get his other what I really like and hate about the Malifaux miniatures, as you can see here, is how detailed they are. And I think it's awesome that they have so much detail. In ways, I think they're even better than Games Workshop's miniatures, or Citadel, whoever makes them, the Warhammer miniatures, because these are not as bulky. They have a lot better proportions, whereas the Warhammer miniatures tend to be really bulky. I mean, it's fine that their orcs and the monsters have bulk, but their normal people, humans, I think they're overdoing it just a bit. But one thing about the Malifaux miniatures like this here I don't know if you can see it, but tilt it maybe a little bit more. This strap goes around his leg, underneath his coat, all the way to the back. It gets a little bit tricky to paint actually, because a lot of places on the miniatures that are really hard to reach with a brush, because of other parts of the miniature. Yeah. A definite maybe. That is actually the most accurate answer anyone can ever possibly give. But yeah. A little bit there. Fix up here, and I messed this one up. It won't hurt from a little bit of extra white down here when we do his pants a little bit, and just a tad more here. Okay, so what else do we need painted red? If I'm going for consistency, there's another strap here. Oh yeah, I've been 24 since like forever. I think I was born at the age of 24. So now, Modifian, are you claiming that I'm 74? Because if you are, you're not that far off, really. See, this strap here should also be red. Now, I'm actually suddenly in a little bit of a hurry to get all of these painted, because I will be playing with them this upcoming Monday. I will not stream it because I don't have a stream setup that's mobile, but I will hope to get as much of these painted as possible before Monday. Here is not going to be looking good next to the vest that is also red, but I don't care. So, well, Modifian, I'm pretty sure you can agree with AJ that math is hard. Because that seems to be a recurring theme. But also, I have the pleasure this Saturday, I believe it was, to be, I don't know, mentoring AJ. Well, the Modifian, that's the thing about gangster English. It's not spelled like regular English. So that's a lot of red done on this guy here. A little bit cleaning up. There we go. So. Well, Bill, you know I'm not going to do that. Not unless I get paid. Yeah, whatever. Let's move on to new and better colors, which I placed over here. Oh, that's Rich Tom cheating at Scrabble. Colors are better than red. And no colors are better than red. Yeah, well, red is a really wonderful color, but paint-wise, I've had a really hard time with at least three different brands of red. And then I just picked up these ones on an impulse, and they turn out really well. So let's see. Moving on to his pants. Because even though we're all in Corona lockdown and yada 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 and so on, these guys, they don't stay home. They're out there fighting vicious monsters, and yeah. Oh, and also, speaking of monsters and the whole Malifaux thing, you all know by now that I really love the universe, and it's complete insane and nutcase and bonkers what they've thrown together. And I should need to be careful what I'm saying, because one of my players will actually be watching this later, I think. It's not very much on when I'm streaming live. Bill, have I never... I must have mentioned Malifaux to you. It is an insane world. But anyway, as a treat for my D&D group, I will actually be hosting a Christmas special one-shot adventure at some point. We haven't figured out which date to do it. Probably between Christmas and New Year's. I don't know how busy people are until then, if we can actually play in December. But it's one of the Malifaux standalone modules. Just the fact that the standalone modules are called Penny Dreadful one-shots, that itself is cool. And I've not read the details of it yet, but I do know that it's called A Christmas Carol, which will give you a hint about what will go on in it. And it features a very vicious looking snowman on the front. Sharp teeth, sort of think monster snowman. And I'm really looking forward to trying it out, also because we'll be trying out the Malifaux role-playing game system, which is called Through the Breach. And one of the things I'm really curious about how they've done is the use of cards instead of dice. You basically have a standard poker set, four suits, 13 cards in each. It's the same when you're doing Malifaux, and the thing about that is that with dice, whenever you roll, you have completely unrelated stochastic occurrences, whereas with a deck of cards, you know which cards have already been used, which means that they cannot come again in this round. And that is going to be interesting to see how they incorporate that. And you're talking about Team Undies again. Of course you are. Team Undies is what the lovely people in my chat are using when they're playing. It's called Fall Guys. I keep confusing that game with another game called Humans Fall Flat, which I'd like to try, but I'd love to try both games at some point. Just don't seem to have as much time as all that. It's probably because I actually work. Should do something about that. I should just go on retirement. Yeah, Tom says, Human Falls Flat is really good. I'd like to play it co-op if you have it on PlayStation. I don't actually have a PlayStation that can run anything, I think. I have an old PS3. I don't know if that actually runs Humans Fall Flat, if it's even available. And I don't think I'll be getting a PS4, you know, with the PS5 just around the corner. And as for the PS5, I'm gonna wait a little bit until it's actually stabilized, because it seems like the first version of all the consoles are just not worth getting. Well, of course they are, because they have awesome graphics and all that, but they also have all the child diseases and things that go oops, and it can be anything from security issues to just poor management of resources. I believe wasn't it the PS2 that had an absolutely horrible energy profile? So it didn't go into power save or something like that, so it was just turned on. It never powered down or anything like that, which just meant that the 3D graphics card or chips, that was the PS2 that had a horribly complicated setup with lots and lots of different chips, different things. But the PS3, or 2, I can't remember, it didn't go into power save. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Some people got some surprises on their power bills. What are you saying? You say AJ saying done. Done to what? Done with work? Done with this cruel, cruel world. Wow. Focus a little bit. I cannot for the life of me figure out where his pants end and his boots begin. I think I messed it up a little bit on the other leg there. But that is something that can be fixed. Yeah, no, I think we have some moderators around. Could one of you please throw out that guy who's not already left, or bot, which it probably is. And also don't click links to Russia, Russian sites. So, hey Bill, congrats on your big break, and thank you for removing the message. Oh, that kind of big break. I'm sorry, I am stupid and retarded at the same time, and I don't think that counts as multitasking. But hey, I guess that's a positive sign, you know, that bots start coming in and spamming. It must mean that I'm doing something right to be worthy of that. But as I was saying, before I let myself get distracted yet again, I'll be doing the Christmas special for my role-playing group, and that's pretty neat. I look forward to it. I also look forward to actually running a module again. I have not done that in... well, it's not 24 years. It's been less than that. I know that for a fact. But I think we were back before 2010. So last time I actually did something that wasn't homebrewed, which also I find quite interesting when, you know, looking at RPG forums, especially D&D. Put a lot of I don't know, give a lot of respect, I guess, to people who are doing homebrew, but it also seems like people are really afraid to do it because they're afraid to mess up the game balance or do other things. And when I'm saying homebrew, I'm strictly talking about worlds and plot. I'm not talking about homebrewed rules, although that does apply. Homebrewed rules are usually just referred to as house rules. But homebrewed worlds is basically what me and the friends I'm playing with, and I've been playing with them for 20-25 years now, which is effectively since I was born, apparently. No, but we've always kind of made our own worlds instead of going with the traditional settings. And I think some of it comes from when we started, back in the early days with not the really old D&D sets, but the red and blue boxes you would get, where the red was level 1 to 3 or 1 to 4, whichever it was, and the blue picked up from there. And it wasn't until the blue set, or boxed set, that you actually had some kind of rules for traveling over land. Any rules prior to that was just about walking around in dungeons, so we did a lot of dungeon crawls and no world building and stuff like that, which means that the setting wasn't really that important, because if we went anywhere, we just sort of, yeah, we're going back to town and sell some gear, whatever. But then as we sort of grew from there, it just became sort of natural, because there was the whole old gazetteer line of products which described different game worlds, game settings, but I didn't have access to those, and neither did the friends I played with back then. This was a different group. So what we did instead was we just made up our own, or used small stuff from some modules or whatever, and then expanded upon it, simply because it was, we wanted to play in a setting, obviously, but we didn't really have anything. We didn't have access to the Forgotten Realms, and we didn't have access to the Dragonlance books and so on. That didn't come until a few years later, when I was in high school and started playing Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, where some of the people there had the Forgotten Realms source book. So that was the first sort of major world I played in. But even there, we didn't do a good job of following the rules and the settings and the descriptions of what was actually in that world. We were pretty sort of casual about all of that. So he's coming along. I will wait with his face and his hair until a little bit later. So let's do his boots. No, but so for me, the whole concept of doing homebrew world is kind of, why not? I mean, that's what you do, isn't it? Because that's what we always did back then. And then I found out that it's apparently something that not a lot of people do. They just buy a game setting, or they buy and then they play it sort of fairly strict. Now that being said, I should also probably well, but you're on your other job, AJ, so you're excused. But I did play a lot of Shadowrun from high school and on, and also played in Earthdawn, which is a fantasy setting that a lot of people speculate is the same game world as Shadowrun. So Earthdawn is either very far in the future or very far in the past. That is a little bit up to you to decide. But there are so many overlapping names and things and concepts that it makes sense that one is their fantasy world and the other one is their modern or future, near future, cyberpunkish world. Not to be confused with the cyberpunk role-playing game. So we played in that, and we did kind of follow the game setting there, but that world is a lot easier to manage, because that is basically our world. In Shadowrun, it's for some reason set in Seattle, 62 years out in the future. So when I started playing it, it was in early 90s, so that must have been the late 2050s in the game world. And of course there were, you know, some descriptions about, you know, nightclubs and hotels and large companies and all that we stuck to. But a lot of it is just so much easier to do, because just take a standard map of Seattle and you'll have all the different places, and you know, you'll still have the Space Needle and all those things. So that's pretty much just standard. But since it's our own world, we didn't really need to go through a huge description of how does the world look, what's the geography, and all those things. It just sort of came natural to us, because you basically just look at your normal map. You know where all the countries are. You don't need a gazetteer or a source book to tell you that there's a country called Germany, or a country called England, or a country called USA, except that the US does not exist in the Shadowrun world. It kind of fell apart. So it's basically just about, in Shadowrun, saying, okay, I know my own world. I mean, I live in it. I've been living in it for about 24 years. We established that as the common age for all of us. And then you just modify it slightly to suit the game world. Corporations have a lot more power in Shadowrun than they do in our world, even more than they do in our world. Some of them have gained it's called extraterritorial status, which effectively turns them into small countries in and of themselves. So that means that some of the large corporate headquarters in Seattle are not strictly considered part of Seattle for legal purposes and all that. So they have their own security systems and strike forces and all that. They have a lot of leeway. So, but again, it's still in Seattle. It's still right next to Puget Sound. You can still go up to what used to be Canada, which is now the Native American states, and all that. So that kind of setting is not sort of a setting where you have to get into it from scratch. You have to really have a running start on something like Shadowrun, about the world we all live in right now. Yeah, I'm doing my best to remember to keep him miniature here in focus and in the camera's view angle. But I'm also trying to paint him, and that sometimes means that I have to hold him at odd angles. Because, as I said, these miniatures are lovely and highly detailed, but that also means that they sometimes obscure their own details from me when I'm trying to paint it. I don't think I'm ever... Oh yeah, I can go in from here. I was just about to say, I don't think I'm gonna be able to paint... What do we have? You probably can't see it, but all the way, his right boot, all the way there at the back. Let's see if we can fix it. So yeah, so that was a little rant again about settings and all that. So that came from doing the Christmas Carol special from a role-playing group, because that is the first published adventure I'll be running in, I would say, at least 10 years. I don't think that's an exaggeration. Okay, see you, smelly farts. Or smell you later, more likely. Have fun. So, more paint on the boots. So, but I look forward to doing it, and I especially look forward to doing it in the Malifaux world, because it's just so insane what they've put into it. People over at Weird Games, Weird spelled with a Y, they seem like an awesome bunch of people. So a little bit. So, but again, we're getting to the second layer of paint on the boots, because when you thin your paint, you get a lot more control of the paints, I think. But they're also thinner, so you need more layers, and that is a trade-off I am very much willing to take. It does mean that you have to let the paint dry properly in between layers, otherwise you'll just be pushing around the old paint, and sometimes if it's sort of half dried, it can actually mess it up quite a bit, leaving brush marks and stuff in the half dried paint. So with that being said, let's leave the boots for now. Move on to this is perhaps could do with a new layer. Just a quick once over. Just see if we can make it a little bit more sort of consistent coloring all over. Oh, in other news, some of the other Danish miniature streamers have been talking about the really fun winter Christmassy event we're going to do. And I will not spoil anything, not because I think we have to be secret about it, but I will wait until we can do a sort of a shared announcement on it. I can say though that it will involve all of us being challenged to do stuff we don't normally do, and we're also looking at turning it into some kind of excuse for giving away stuff, which I am quite fond of doing, like I did this Monday. I went off to drop off my old paint organizer to one of the other Danish painters. I just basically made a small competition in one of our Facebook groups, and said that I didn't have any sort of criteria. They should just explain to me why they should have it. Just posted a few pictures so people could see what it is, gave the stats like it's holding the 26mm bottles, which is Vallejo, Army Painter, scale color, that size from those brands, and then just give me a reason why you should have it. Oh, Emma, welcome, and thank you for calling it a pro setup. I am definitely improving it almost every time I stream. I have some new changes. Today I finally moved my good microphone over here to my painting desk and got that up and running. I've moved my lights and my camera around, so as you can see, it's now sitting quite nicely, so I don't have the camera right in front of me like I did before, so it's not in the way of my hands. You see it's all the way up here, and I don't know why it took me so long to realize that having my lamp on the right side when I'm right-handed is a really bad idea, because anything I do over here, like this is where I go to rinse my pen, my brushes, this is where I go to use my wet palette, all those things. I don't know why I didn't really realize how much the lamp was in the way, rather the arm of the lamp. So I moved that one as well, and it seems to be working quite nicely. It's a Canon 200M, so it's not really a DSLR, but it's kind of their mirrorless DSLRs, if that makes sense to you. And I'm quite happy with it. At first I got the 50M, but that has severe limitations when using the HDMI output. So I exchanged it and got the 200M instead, and I've been nothing but pleased with it. For regular photography I would prefer the 50M, I'm quite sure, but the 200M has the huge advantage of not powering down every 30 minutes, I think. Oh, an excellent camera. Yeah, actually I used to run on my laptop, and that's when I had the famous crashes where it would crash after about an hour or so, or sometimes in just a few minutes. And that was, you know, using one of the Camlink 4K, what's it called, capture, frame grabber, whatever, HDMI capture card. And so using that, my old laptop would crash, and my old desktop computer, which was my old gaming computer, apparently didn't have any USB 3 ports. So when I tried plugging it in, I just had, you know, I had seconds per frame and not frames per second, as I prefer to, as I like to say once in a while. So that was truly horrible. DSLR AC converter, we only have battery right now. Yeah, I'm running this on power supply as well. Otherwise, you would only get about, I think it's 90 minutes of battery time. But I'm quite happy with the setup. Oh, and yeah, the 200M Emma, just for so you know, it actually does 4K video. My old computer, once I bought some, I bought a PCI Express card with some USB 3 ports in it, and it works. It works fine. Runs totally smooth. Doesn't tell me that I have dropped frames, which makes sense since I'm not running a really heavy game next to all of this. So yeah, I'm quite pleased. I'm only streaming in, I don't know, whatever I'm streaming in, 720 or 1080 or whatever. But the camera and the HDMI grabber is actually ready for just going straight to 4K if I ever get around to doing that or looking into it. For my own part regarding that, I don't have a 4K monitor, so I don't see any reason why I should try to work with 4K in any way. I would probably just mess it up more than I would actually get good thing. Oh, you're prepping for... Well, I look really forward to it, AJ. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a pleasure just chatting with you about things we both care about and are passionate about. But yeah, go prep, and we will see. Oh, and remember, we talked about this already, but if you go above, you know, 2 or 3 total party wipes in one session, they're probably not gonna come back. So stick to 1, maybe 2 if they're being idiots. Is that okay? Now this takes me down to one of my other small pet peeves regarding role-playing games, and I think it's turned into a pet peeve because it's something I used to do but realized how much I didn't like doing it. So now that I'm not doing it anymore, then I obviously see it as the only true way of playing role-playing games. And that is of course completely rubbish and silly. You should play role-playing games, and any other game for that matter, in whatever way you choose and whatever way you want. Because it's your game, it's your game group, you should have fun. You should never ever do something because I tell you to. You should do it if it sounds reasonable and if it fits into your playstyle and all that. So, that disclaimer out of the way, what do I want to talk about now? Well, not so much party wipes in and of themselves, but more sort of the attitude or playstyle that often goes along with them. And what I'm specifically thinking of is the concept of role-playing games as the players against the game master. Again, I use game master or dungeon master interchangeably. Sometimes I say one, sometimes I say the other, but basically it's the same. But for that, you know, when we started out playing, me and my friends back in 7th grade or whatever it was, 6th grade, probably earlier, I was 11 when we started playing. It quickly turned into, well, since it was mainly strictly dungeon crawls we were doing. It actually seemed like what we did was very much sort of the dungeon master prepared a dungeon for the players to see if they could make it through it alive. Which means that the dungeon master, calculated all the hit points for the monsters and knew where all the traps were located and all that, and played that, and then the player characters, or the player's job, was to, as I said, survive through this dungeon. And that naturally turned into the whole kind of dungeon crawl-ish adventure that people have come to love or hate, or just accept exist, where you run basically through a series of small rooms that are only connected through doorways and not through actual sounds and so on. So you'll have one room with a bunch of orcs. You run in, you defeat them, you fight them, you go into the next room, and you'll have a dragon sleeping there without anyone wondering about what the dragon is even doing there. I'll just need to put my phone on silent. I thought I had already done that. Sorry. Go away. So the whole concept of players versus game masters sort of came from there, and the many of us who started out back then just played the game as essentially a kind of a board game. Just like, you'll have the co-op games of today, like Gloomhaven or stuff like that, where you play against the game. But here, like in Descent or Imperial Assault, you would actually have the game master running one side and the group running the other, the party, whatever you want to call it. And my issue with that now is that it doesn't actually do good things for the storytelling aspect of role-playing games, which is what I've come to enjoy the most. And I get the whole concept of, the feeling of success that comes from beating one of your friends. I mean, I like to play competitive games like Malifaux. Play with one of my friends, and we seriously try to win against the other team. But for role-playing games, it makes so much more fun for me and for the group I'm playing with if we focus on the plot and the characters, and especially the character flaws. Because if you're going the whole players versus dungeon master direction, then there are, and I think the systems in Dungeons and Dragons are actually quite well designed, with the system, what they call the challenge rating of monsters, which you can use to build suitable encounters for whatever level or levels your gaming group is. So if you have characters of a certain level, you can actually say they should be able to handle this combination of monsters based on the challenge rating and so on. However, what do you do when you have silly characters or silly players, like I am and like the people I play with are, who go, yeah, I could build an optimized combat monster, but it is a lot more fun to just go, let's see, dip into a lot of different levels in different classes, or take skills that make no sense combat-wise, but feels freaking awesome to have when you're doing social role-playing stuff. For instance, let's say you just want to know a lot about chemistry. Not from I want to create designer drugs or make healing potions or anything like that. We're not going into that territory at all. We're just doing a sort of a knowledge skill. We're just going I want to know something about this, because if my character would know this, and of course the game master should play up to that a little bit in some of the adventures, not too much because that turns metagame-ish, but should still say, well, that's a cool thing because it shows a little bit about what that character can when they're not that one well. when they are not in the middle of a fight on a battle board or battle mat or whatever. Let's just see if we can wipe this off. Close enough. So, but if you go by the numbers and you go by the challenge ratings and you say that this character of level 4 or group of characters of whatever should be able to take down these monsters, then you effectively tell your players that they need to optimize their characters for combat. Because and I am not an expert in this, I have not done a lot of work with this because we play in a different way, but it seems like the challenge rating is built for strictly combat and doesn't expect the characters to do, you know, crazy stuff. In another game group, well, same people, different game, different setting, again homebrew, I made a mage, some kind of wizard, no spells, but I have not taken a single combat spell. I have not taken a single combat skill, which means that my character really, really sucks if we ever get into real combat, which we do. What I have instead are a lot of support spells and support skills and other stuff like that, but I would not be able to hold my own in combat. I would not be able to hit anything, and I would go down the first time anyone sneezed in my general direction. But even so, we're, what, 2 game sessions in, we did have some combat, and it is by far one of the most fun characters I've ever played. And part of that is because she has all these support spells. I may not be good in combat, but I can make sure that you go without feeling thirst or hunger for about 24 hours. I can also make sure that you don't need to eat anything, because not being hungry and not needing to eat are 2 different things in this particular case. So I can actually assist with that. For instance, I have a levitate spell, so when the other people finally got, you know, that horrible blob of a triple zombie monster killed, well, I could actually just move it out of the way without any of us having to touch it. I can, you know, do light spells, I can do some healing, you know, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I have so much fun doing that. And that's because we're going on a principle where we do this because we want to tell good stories. We want to have fun exploring our characters, exploring the world. In this particular group, we've placed ourselves in the other end of the map from where we usually are in this game world, specifically so our game master can get some input on that country. That is sort of the defined purpose of this group, is to explore the country of La Fafaran, as it's called. Don't ask, we make silly names for our places. So, I messed up just a little bit here. But yeah, I need a finer pen. I keep calling them pens. That is because in Danish it's called a pencil, which sounds like pencil, but is spelled quite differently. So when I sort of lose track of what I'm doing, I revert to wanting to call them pencils and catch myself and end up calling them pens, which is just silly, I know. Anyway, that should do it. Now I think I'm at the point where we go for, yeah, let's go with a contrast paint in a short bit. I just need to touch up the top of his coat just a little bit more. So do we have any survivors in chat? Let's just do sort of a mix of semi-blend highlight stuff on this. Should do. No, no survivors. What a shame. Anywho, yeah, that white just needs to dry up just a bit. This will not make it go faster, but it might be what is needed. Ah, Modifian is still here. Of course you are. Thank you for that, love. I really appreciate it. Let's just do his entire sort of cape thing here. Do all of that white. Oh, you cannot see that with the white balancing and the stuff in the camera. I've been trying to figure out if I can actually change stuff like the aperture value on the camera when it's in video mode, but I haven't been able to find it yet. So maybe I will at some point. So while the white is drying over there, let's just touch up some of the other things that we won't be touching anytime soon, like here. I think the belt buckles, well, not the belt, whatever these are called, the buckles here on his vest, they need to be in a different color. Also needs to be in a color and not a wash. This what this appears to have turned into. So I thinned it way too much. So yeah, a little bit in here. And again, magnifying glass is so nice to work with. It really is what makes all of this possible. It's also a little scary because it actually does show all the mistakes I make, but I am beginning to get used to the fact that they will not be visible once this model is on the table and you're looking at it from above. Eesh. I mean, all the things going on underneath his coat, which you can't really see here, you know, the back of his right leg and all that, it doesn't really matter because he'll be standing, you'll be looking at him like this, so you won't be seeing his, you know, his legs that much and all that. So yeah. Okay, so done with that. Now we're gonna go for playing around with the contrast colors. We have, I guess we also have this one here. All this. Yep, bloody baby, and oh god, what did I eat? Yep, and we're gonna make it even worse because we're gonna add some solid brown to the mix. The question is, should it be sort of a reddish brown like the one in the middle? A golden brown? Let's do a quick test here. But yeah, all the shades of diarrhea. I'm gonna remember that for if I ever actually win a game again. What do we have? Let's just use this one. So that's one option. Another option that's a little brighter, but it's also a lot less opaque, which means that whatever color is underneath it is gonna go through this one here so much more. And then finally we have this one. I don't know how much you can see on the actual camera. Yeah, so I'm basically leaning towards this one over here, which is the darkest of the ones we have. This one has a tendency to be quite thin, which means that the black part will help, you know, on his coat. not knock any paint over today. So you see, the genital highlight means that this area down here is a lot darker. It's not just straight white as this one up here, just like all the underside of his coat. That's going to be very clear here, and this one here is sort of a little green, I guess, into it. But yeah, definitely going to go for the dark one. That one. I'm going to close all of them because I also need to shake this one. And should easily be able to get that done on this stream, and we'll see where we end up. Hopefully, if I can get all the base coating done today, that would be really nice, because then I can do layering and highlighting and stuff like that later. So now this one here, the contrasts, I don't actually thin those. I've been over that enough to go into that again with what the contrast colors are. Suffice to say that I do love working with them, especially in large areas like this, because I am not good with doing proper highlights and layering and all those things. Those are techniques I've never really worked with. So for this, the contrast helped me immensely. So this is beginning to look like, well, not Christmas, but it's looking like something. So yeah, this one's better, a little bit too much. So by the way, Modifian, I will probably also get to see Sparky quite soon, because we're playing Gloomhaven, and of course it's a little bit on break because of Sparky, but they're actually at the point where they're considering finding some time for it, and instead of doing it over webcam, they would really appreciate it if I come join them, because then I can help setting up the game board and all that. So to put a little bit of pressure away from Sparky's parents, that is really cool. Oh yeah, this looks good. And do I need more over here, or do I need less over there? I actually need a little bit less over here. I'm still learning. The day I stop learning is the day I die. I would not want to live in a world where there was nothing to learn or where I couldn't learn it. So yeah, if I ever turn vegetable, they will fight Sparky into your arm and disappear to do crazy things like vacuum dust. Oh, I would love that. I'm just gonna take Sparky and I'm gonna teach her how to brew her own meat and crochet, paint miniatures, and all the necessary skills in life. I still cannot see that. I need to find a way. I need to find a camera that takes up no space whatsoever, is fully mobile, do not have any restrictions on how you can turn it around, and then I need to probably find enough money to buy it, because I don't think it's going to be cheap. Far from it actually. Let's go over here to the underside of this arm. Hey, that just hit the handle. Not a problem. It's also a sign that I'm getting a little tired. Is when stuff like that happens, me more or less dropping my brush. But yeah, this is definitely going to be so much better with the dark brown here. It's gonna have this odd white or clear bit there where I gave it the extra white. But we'll just live with that for now. I might be able to go and fix it up at a later point in time. But for now, I don't really care. What I care about is actually just going to the edge here. And then with a finer brush, I'll clean it up next to the red. So here we go. And again, with doing these kind of things, I really like the contrast paints and what they do in terms of, you know, giving the shades and the highlights, making it super easy to get a good result. Just a little bit over here. Dab on some extra color. The same up here. Technically, we shouldn't do that, but as I've stated many times, I like breaking the rules. So let's just do that. I mean, the big question here is, of course, do we want to do the inside of this coat or not? Yeah, I messed that one up a little bit. Yes. I'll do some of it, because you can see the white sticking through there on his right. But at the same time, I don't want to mess around with, you know, all the fiddly bits. But I need to do something about that. This can go so horribly wrong. Slowly bring that one back out. Now I need to actually take him out of this. So that will give me a lot more room to work around with then yeah, do the underside. Yeah, definitely. I mean, this one up here, no one's ever gonna see it, but we're gonna do it as much as I can, at least. Because some of that cloak coat, I guess it is actually going to be visible from on high, from up above. So it doesn't have to be, you know, properly shaded or anything like that, but it's not good if it's white. Then I should then I should have gone with sort of giving it an inner lining of a different color or something like that. But an inner lining of white on a coat like this just seems, to me, it seems silly. Plus, I mean, you wouldn't have something like that with the amount of blood he usually spills. To the extent that horrible monsters have blood, I don't think any kind of white or, you know, too bright colors are really that good. And there you go, just gently touching up the line so you don't have any white showing in between, you know, his vest and his coat. And there you go. That is why, despite at first being a little, I don't know what, I not too happy about the contrast colors from Citadel. Now, having worked with them and you're using them together with other paints, so you do stuff like that, which I can't really do well on my own. Works really nice for it and takes a lot less time. So yeah, reminds me of the old Despair Incorporated poster about mediocrity. It says that mediocrity takes a lot less time and most people won't notice the difference until it's too late. Comes alongside a photo, really nice photo of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. So yeah, there you have it. I'm just gonna clean off this pen, a brush again. I'm saying pen instead of brush, which is me being bad. I just need to see. This is probably not the best way to do it, but the contrast paints have a tendency. Oh, you can't see. But just using this one here, which is a brush cleaning soap, and I just get it really, nice and deep into the brush here to get the last bits of the contrast color out. So helps with the lifetime of your brushes. So I don't do it as often as other people. Some people will go to great lengths to keep their brushes fully cleaned all the time, and sometimes many times during a painting session. I don't. I'm too lazy for that. It's just a little bit too much work, at least for me. So yeah, that went reasonably well. Can you see? That's good. I mean, just see how much that actually does for the miniature when he's standing there. And it doesn't have to be more than that. It doesn't need the excessive highlighting because you can see the folds in the fabric, especially down on his back. It's still shiny. That's because it's still wet. So it's still drying up. So it's a pretty decent result. Then we need to get on with his guns and hands and face and what's called the bandoliers, where he's got all his ammunition, and his face. I am not looking forward to doing that, but I will. So I'm gonna start by making the guns a little black. Shake your paints. And for that we'll be using this one here. Hey Wohan, welcome aboard. Yeah, it's looking well. I mean, this is what we got so far. Don't know how much you can see. I haven't done any washing or shading yet, so that needs to be done. And I need to get him back on this one. Let's do it like so. So yeah. Oh yeah, and as for before I start painting on this dude here, for Papa Loco, I tried out something going. Dear left treatment paper, it does. No, but Wohan, what I did instead of painting Papa Loco's the base here, the rim of the base, I actually just used some standard hand sanitizer, like this, you know, the ones, and just a cotton, what's called cotton tip, and just it comes right off. It just more or less melts away completely. And then I have the original plastic surface instead of a painted surface. I think that's going to be better. The Colorado scene, is that the reference to the colors, or what didn't I get? Guns. We're doing guns. Right, the color scheme, yeah. And no, the alcohol gel does not take the shine out of the plastic. It removes the paint from the plastic, actually leaves it shinier than if I had painted it with just with a black color. Damn autocorrect. Okay, yeah, I get it. So color scheme turned into Colorado scene. That is one of the better ones I've heard. Ah, forgot the other side of the knife. I just suddenly saw, you know, a bit of white showing up, and I figured, well, did I miss sort of the inner curve of the blade or something? And turn it over, and realized I missed the entire outer side of the knife. Or I don't know what these kind of blades that you stick to your gun is called, if they actually have a name. Here it's just sort of Santiago being a mean badass. So here we go, and let's do the other one, and oh yeah, thank you. I don't know if you were here before one, but the effect on the cloak or coat or whatever it is actually just one of the brown contrast colors. Really simple. It only took 2 minutes or so to get through all of that. So that is really nice. I think I'm just gonna, again, for emphasis on showing him off at a distance, I think with the guns, I'm not going to do a lot of detail on them. I'm just going to make them pop by making them sort of a shiny metallic color, you know, silver, metalish. And we also need to just quickly do the underside. I'm again not too worried about the underside of, you know, this gun and this arm, because I'm doing miniatures that are being used for games, and he's going to be standing like this. So you'd have to pick him up to actually see the underside. And until that happens, well, people are not supposed to do that while he's still alive and on the board. So it's going to be fine. We do need to get all of the visible parts probably covered with paint. So But yeah, but the cloak, I mean, look at that. That's gonna look neat. And of course, Modifian's potty mouth naturally declared that he is all the shades of diarrhea. Which I guess she has a point. It's a little bit more. There we go. So yeah. Something in here is not properly painted black. And now it is. So that will have to do. And then yeah, I know Modifian. I have all the funny colors. Now you're saying gallstones diarrhea. Do you actually know that it makes sense for people who have problems with gallstones to get diarrhea? Just saying. So for his okay, I still haven't fully learned the whole concept of not fixing my mistakes as I go along. I'm trying. When I see something as glaring as this, I need to fix it. There we go. Again, the thing here was that it was a little bit of white in between two different colors. Yeah, you know the trials. Yeah, you and me both. So, as for his flesh, I have never really been good at, hitting just the right balance or the right, skin color. I've never been really good at doing that. So let's just keep throwing ourselves into the mix and do an elf tone here as the base, and add some white into it to get it a little bit lighter. See if that if we can get any useful coloring out of that. Just really want to, tone it down. Well, not tone it down, just since it's white. I want to make it, brighter and paler, I guess. I also want to thinning it down a little bit. And now when it's going on the miniature, because of the sentinel highlighting, his actually the whites are not really that white. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that you're feeling ill, Modifian. I really hope that if you are ill, that it's just a normal round of whateverness and not COVID-19. Yeah, I get that. I would feel the same. Let's just color in all of this. Here. All the way down to the black. I'm being a bit quiet because, focus and concentration, stuff like that. Now it still has a bit of sort of too reddish tone to it, I guess. You know, the skin color here, but I'm hoping that it is something I can fix by first shading it down, of course into a darker color, and then doing some highlighting. Pre-symptomatic transmission. Oh yeah, that is so annoying. I mean, imagine that, running around not feeling sick at all, and you probably have it for what, I'm guessing a few, well, several days at least, maybe a few weeks worth, I don't know. How long can you run around being, is it called asymptomatic? I think it is. When you don't have any of the symptoms, but you actually have the disease, and you may not get the symptoms, you may not actually get sick, but you can infect other people who are then in high-risk groups. Yeah. Yeah, asymptomatic is when you don't have any and won't get any despite being sick. So you still carry the disease around, spreading it to, you know, everyone, and you never get sick yourself. Pre-symptomatics when you are infectious, I guess, but will be symptomatic later as the disease progresses. Yeah, that's sort of the first thing that seemed to throw people off with this, was that people felt fine, they went to work, they saw their friends, and then a few days later they realized that they had been sick all along. So from disease point of view, I know it doesn't have any, but let's just anthropomorphize it anyway. It's really successful in that it has a long time where it can spread to other people without them knowing it, and then it will hit really hard once all that is done. And as horrible as this disease is, and as deadly as it can be, imagine if it was as deadly as something like Ebola. So I'm guessing that what we should get used to this kind of thing probably happening. Was Malivian right? I don't know why it's so hard for people to understand. With common colds, we all know you're symptomatic 3 to 4 days before it hits. Yeah, but the problem is with the common cold, or even regular flu, is that there are, of course, and so on, but for most people it's just, yeah, they get the flu or whatever, days of being infected, then they get it, so they don't spread it around as much, and then people just go, oh, but that's just the flu, and we're not talking about cold, we are talking about the flu here, but then the problem is they still go to work. It's been my pet peeve for years, people showing up to work with symptoms, and I don't care if it's the cold, I don't care if it's the flu, I don't care if you feel like you can go to work and you want to show your boss that yes, you're a team player and all that. In my mind, you're not a team player if you go to work while being sick, because you will infect the rest of your team, and that kind of sort of goes directly against what a team player should do. You're putting your teammates at risk. How does that make you a team player? I'll probably get away with just leaving the underside of his hand completely dark, because I need to paint over the stuff I just did. Let's do a little bit more here. get it in there. Yeah, I'm actually gonna do that. See how it goes out. Yeah, Malifaux, that's sort of a stupid Danish thing. We have so many things we don't have to do it. I mean, we have paid sick leave. At least most of us do. We can just stay home. We won't get deducted from pay. And I've talked to some friends I know in Sweden about this. Some years ago it may have changed. And they actually have a different setup where I think it's the first day or the first 2 days they actually get deducted from their pay if they're sick. And it wasn't until I talked to them about it that I suddenly realized that, oh, there are people who cannot just call in sick. They actually have to take into account their finances and see, can I afford to stay home being sick? But in Denmark, no. I mean, I cannot even begin to come up with any kind of job where you would say you're so important that you have to come in even though you're sick. Obviously something like doctor comes to mind because you'll be saving people's life, but if you're sick you should not come into work as a doctor because you'll be talking to Danes are the Texas of Scandinavia. You're not being entirely fair here, I think. We're not as bad as Texas. But yeah, we are probably a little bit gung-ho with some of these things. This is ear. I'm terrible at doing eyes, and I'm not too keen on doing ears. But I will do them anyway for Santiago. Okay, he's actually looking mighty creepy here. With the way the cenital works with this sort of skin colorish paint I'm applying here. I don't know if you can see it. But hey, it seems to work. Oh. Surprise, he has 2 ears. There's another one hiding over there. I got a theme going, like the gray-white hair, even though I know it's not painted. Yeah, I mean, with Papa Loco, I ended up leaving it just like that here, because it fits him. Also, he's insane. So yeah, but maybe just doing that, just keeping them all sort of gray-haired. I think Perdita, does she have long hair? Well, Perdita has long hair. I think it's gonna look strange on her. So I might do some other color with her hair. It's probably, I don't know, bright green or something completely off to really make her stand out. She's the leader of the bunch. And do a wash with a gray black. I could thin down that black, maybe do a little bit of white in it, to get that extra coloring. That might work. Let's see, that was with the hands. The hands needs a second layer. And apparently my fingers also need a little bit of paint. That happens all the time. So, but as I said, I'm not good at sort of controlling how the skin turns out, the skin coloring. I need to go in and touch this up mighty heavily in a little. That's fine, it's all fine. Yeah, I could do orange for Perdita, for her hair. Sort of bright orange. It's also going to be really visible on the battlefield, which is not what you want if you're actually on a battlefield, but if you want your miniatures to look cool, then you want color. Again, I am a slow painter, but I do get things painted eventually. So this one here. I'll fix it again with the black in a little bit. It's not the problem is that actually got a little bit too thin, so it works a little bit more like a wash, which is really not what you want here. You can just peel off a little bit of the paint, like so. See how nice. And again, I'm cheating a lot with this mini, I think, just to make it a little bit more doable with painting it. And now I'm gonna need to do the final layer here on the face, a final layer of paint, and then I will cut the stream for today because it's been about 2 hours already. So thank you for showing up. If you want to stick around for a bit more, I'll try to see if we can find someone else's channel to raid. Don't know if anyone are live at the moment. That'll be a lot more fun in December, because in December then Emma, who showed up before, she will actually be streaming every day from 8 p.m. So that means that I will be able to raid her channel with all of you guys afterwards. And Emma is really nice and lovely young Dutch woman who also does miniature painting once in a while. She does knitting, crocheting, she plays computer games, has a background in the board game industry. So she knows a lot. She has the Pointless Parrot podcast, which is really fun to listen to, where you can hear interviews with people from the board game industry, talk about game design, the industry, trends, basically anything. It depends on who she's interviewing, obviously. So yeah, that's really cool, really fun. And since you'll be streaming from 8 throughout all of December, then since I'm ending my streams at around 9, then I think it makes perfect sense to just dump people over at her. You're gonna go murder people? Oh, if you're gonna go murder people in Among Us, can I join? There we go. The odd thing here with working with this, it's a little bit of a sort of reverse ink shading going on. in the sense that since it's a thin paint, it tends to go into the recesses. However, that makes the recesses brighter than the highlighted areas, or the raised areas. Still kind. I will just do the final touches here on his ears, and then I am ready to go kill people in Among Us. Mind you though, I'll need to figure out what to do about my microphone setup, because I just moved the microphone to my other desk. And microphone is kind of idle to Among Us. But I'm sure I will figure something out. And now, of course, the paint decides to be really sticky and fiddly and annoying. Just when I'm about to finish everything. Anyway, I will just do this. No, too thick or too thin. Paint is too thin, doesn't apply properly. It's a bit better. I've got that one over here. You know, actually, Modifian, I don't think I'm gonna go with white hair for this dude. I know it would be a cool theme, but also I need to go get some actual color on him as well. But anyway, session, I think that went pretty well. Didn't get as much all the base coating done. Would have loved to do more, but I got some done. So I will say thank you for tonight, and I will leave the lovely music by Adrian von Ziegler playing for a while yet, while we wind down. And thank you for showing up. Thank you for all your lovely comments about my paint scheme looking like all the colors of diarrhea. Thank you for having fun in chat. Thank you for being interactive. I hope you have a very lovely evening. Bye now.